Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are joining us from today. Today, our webinar is going to be brought to you by CX Network and Language IO, and we're going to be discussing how to support customers accurately, and securely in any language. So today's session will be a fireside chat between Sheridan Orr, Chief Marketing Officer at Language IO, and Heather Shoemaker, founder and CEO at Language IO. Just before I do hand over, I would like to take a moment to introduce you to your speakers today. So Heather Shoemaker is by training a software developer and linguist with a vision of how AI can solve the very human challenge of connecting across language barriers. So Heather, AI is not just a trend, it's something that she's been working on for over a decade. So through her leadership, Language IO has really defined the category of multilingual customer support. And Heather is in conversation today with Sheridan Orr, and Sheridan has worked in the tech sector for 2 decades. She's mainly been focused on high growth B2B SaaS companies. And before joining Language IO, she was the CMO at builtin.com. So you guys are in amazing hands today. Just the last few things from me is a couple of housekeeping points. So firstly, I would like to let you all know that this is being recorded and this will be available on demand. Following today's session, you'll be getting an email from us about that, so keep an eye out if you want to revisit any talking points or share with any of your colleagues. Secondly, the Q&A box is open, so please do spam us with as many questions as you have, and we will get through as much as we can towards the end of the webinar. And finally, in the resources tab, there are 4 pieces of free downloadable content from Language IO, including a case study, a security checklist, a buyer's guide. It's all really interesting and very much worth your while, so please do check that out following the webinar. There are also links which will be activated throughout the webinar for a demo with Language IO. So please do check that out too. But without any further ado from me, it is my pleasure to welcome Heather and Sheridan. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Chloe.
Chloe.
I'm going to go through a few quick slides just so you have context of who we are and why this conversation is so meaningful. Let's see if I can share my screen. Can everybody see those?
We've got it.
Perfect. So, Chloe, you did such an amazing job introducing us that I won't say anything further lest I take us down a little bit. But if you don't know Language IO, one of the things that we've been passionate about, you got to hear what Heather's motivation for founding the company was, but really we're committed to delivering secure conversations in any language through the power of AI so that you can connect with your customers in really unique ways without those language barriers. We are fortunate to work with customers across all verticals and sectors, across all size and around the globe. And what unites them is their passion for their customers and making sure that they are delivering truly global experiences. And then finally, we are going to stop sharing and move straight to the discussion with Heather. And one of the things that you guys are going to get to do is I get the privilege of having these types of conversations with Heather all the time. And these are my favorite conversations that I get to have. So you get to join us today on one of our little behind the scenes discussions about language, AI, security, and how we can make sure that we're being accurate for our customers. So without further ado, you get to hear from the person who knows the most on this call. Heather, we talked about Language IO being around for a while, and we were one of the early AI-powered translation platforms. Can you tell us a little bit more about what your inspiration was to found the company?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sheridan. So we're going to have to go way back. how far back I won't say because I don't divulge that information. But as an undergraduate student, like you said, Sheridan, my focus was in linguistics. And I just found speaking other languages to be something enjoyable and fun. And it felt kind of like a superpower. And after I had spent a few years as an interpreter, I decided to go to engineering school because I also liked math, go figure. And after I graduated with my master's degree from the CU Boulder College of Engineering, I was able to combine my love for languages with coding in the field of software internationalization. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the term, internationalization is where engineers take a source code base and adapt it so the source code can support more than just one language. Often there are assumptions made in source code that you just need to handle Western European character encodings. But there are things that you can do to ensure that you're not going to corrupt Asian characters, that your UI displays translations very quickly and dynamically, all sorts of things that go into the internationalization process. And it was a lot of fun. But as I was doing this, and I did it for almost a decade, I discovered as I was helping these big companies globalize their platform that the bigger challenge they faced, for which there was no real answer at the time, was how are we going to scale our customer service operations for all of these languages that our software now supports? You know, it's one thing to make your software support 20 languages. It's another thing to have the humans to support those 20 languages. So what companies were doing is they were staffing up native speaking teams for each of those 20 languages or what have you. And it wasn't really a scalable solution. What they were finding was you staff up a team in China, you staff up a team in France and maybe Mexico. And when suddenly you get a lot of volume in China that the Chinese team can't handle, your folks in Mexico can't help you out there, right? You are limited to the languages that the teams support. So occupancy rates were all over the board. It's a nightmare to staff up these teams all over the globe. So I started thinking about it then, like as a software developer and somebody who likes a challenge, what technology exists today that could help companies scale their support operations, because that was the messiest challenge. And at the time, machine translation was up and coming. And this was one of the earliest forms of true AI that we all rolled out, right? This was back in the day when nobody was saying generative. It was, it was AI and neural networks. And at the time, neural machine translation engines. And often then it was more statistical, is something that I started thinking about, because with real-time translation, we could empower one team that just spoke one language to chat and email with their customers in any language through this technology. So that's kind of how I got the idea.
Well, we're glad you did. But can you tell us some of the reasons? I know you talked about like the occupancy rates and trying to scale customer service teams, but can you tell us a little bit more about how other companies might use us and what use cases there might be?
Absolutely. So now that we have the technology, it's built, it's, been baked in for over a decade now. The use cases we see from some of our bigger customers, and we have a lot of them, are varied. So let's begin with the most common use case. So like I mentioned, what folks were doing before this technology was available is they were staffing up native speaking teams all over the globe. Then they realized this wasn't scaling and they started looking for technology so they could consolidate their support into one or two teams. Let's say you want to consolidate your support organization in India or the Philippines or Mexico or even the UK. You can use our technology to help with that consolidation process, right? So now you can just keep your high-performing senior support agents who know your product inside and out, but maybe just speak one language, doing their jobs. And through our technology, they can be chatting and emailing with customers in any language, voice here soon as well as bots, but we'll talk about that later. So that's one scenario. We call that kind of the operational consolidation model, where a lot of companies are recognizing we can solve this problem with technology. We can keep our occupancy rates high. We can keep our senior, higher performing support agents just doing their job, and they don't have to worry about the language. So that's one scenario, one use case that we see a lot of. Another use case we see a lot of is where a company has reached a size where they're ready to go global. They're ready to market their solution outside of their home market. So maybe you started out in the United States, but now you're ready to launch in Germany, in France, in Japan, in China. And you already know that staffing up native teams all over the globe sounds like a horrible idea, right? Like, just sounds messy and challenging. And so you're out there looking for technology so you don't go down that path first. And you find a solution like ours that enables your existing team to support those customers wherever they are. So those are the two big ones, I would say.
Yeah, I love that, because that is what we see mostly, that they're consolidating and then they're trying to scale and build that flexibility so they can continue to scale. One of the biggest things that I'm interested in, and my favorite pastime to talk with you about, are what trends are you seeing in this space? I know you read vociferously about what's going on in AI and what we should all be thinking about. So spill it. Tell us what you're learning.
Okay. Well, don't give me too much credit, because I do read vociferously, if that's the word. But a lot of it is science fiction. let's not put me up
It's
there
not the
too.
right word.
I appreciate it. So no, but I was actually just at a conference yesterday here in London, sponsored by Salesforce in the gaming and gambling industry. And I would say that, to use a US analogy, the rubber is really hitting the road now. And I hope I'm not outing you, Sheridan, by saying this, but you and I both go back a bit in technology. We are about the same age. We were both around when the dot-com boom was going on. And what's happening right now reminds me very much of the dot-com, not the bust economically, but when you couldn't just have a website and get millions of dollars in VC funding because you have a website, right? So like back when the internet was new, just having a website was a big deal, and you were on the cutting edge if you had one. The same I'm seeing with AI right now. It's not enough to just say, yeah, we do AI, or we power our solution with AI. That's not enough. You have to show value. You have to actually have a very specific use case for which your AI solution is making things better, right? So again, it's not enough to just say we're AI powered. I mean, a few years ago, you'd go to a conference and everybody's banner just said AI. You didn't have to say what you were doing with AI. Generative AI, large language models, as long as you're using some of the buzzwords, that's all you needed to do. Now you actually have to demonstrate the value. You have to demonstrate that it's secure. You have to demonstrate that you're not compromising your customers' data with the platform that you've chosen to use. So, especially in gambling and gaming, the conference I was at, folks are worried. They're worried that AI will be misused, that we're mishandling our customer sensitive financial data. So yeah, I could go on and on about that, but
I think that's a really good, by the way, Heather does not read out loud. It is voraciously is what I was trying to say.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, what am I doing? But regardless, and thanks, Chloe, for letting people know it's been 2 decades that we've been in this space. But I do think that the security aspect, and that's what I really love of what you've been thinking about, like Heather's been thinking about security pretty much at the onset. But now we're going to talk about accuracy, because that's the most important thing. Anybody who has ever typed anything into Google Translate and you want to talk with someone, you know how awkward some of those responses can be. And we don't want to be talking to our customers like that. So we're really focused on customer service. But can you talk a little bit about what accuracy means when you're in regards to translations?
Absolutely. So when we talk about the quality of our translations, I think of kind of two areas of quality. I think about fluency and I think about accuracy, right? So when we talk about fluency, that's where the translation that is provided sounds human. And let's talk about that first, because I feel like it kind of plays nicely into the accuracy piece. So from our perspective, and let's go back to just Google Translate, right? Google Translate's an amazing neural machine translation platform. It's one of the best that exists. It's one of the first that was put out there on a large scale, and it's still great. It's still one of the most human sounding translation platforms for certain languages, but it's probably not the most fluent platform for every language that exists. So what we do at Language.io to ensure first that a real-time translation that we're providing sounds as human as possible is we have something called smart model selection, where we're going to, using our own machine learning, select the best model. It might be Google Translate. It might be Google's Gemini large language model. It could be Papago for Korean and Asian language. We're plugged into numerous models, and we select the best one in real time to ensure that whatever translation we're providing, let's pretend that it's a customer chatting in Korean and we're translating it into English for the support agent, that English translation sounds as human as we can possibly make it sound. So that's the fluency piece. And then accuracy is in addition to that, right? So it might sound super fluent, but we've mistranslated a word. And this is where domain adaptation of the model plays a big role. So one of our customers who I like to call out because their terminology is so much fun is a gaming platform. And they have thousands of different card names that are made up words like Eldrazi Devastator. If you were to attempt to translate Eldrazi Devastator, like let's say from English back into Korean, Eldrazi is a made up word. Like what really is going to happen? Google, Papago, the engines might take a stab at it, but they don't know how this company really wants it translated into Korean because it's made up. There's literally a white labeled version of this card name for each of the 20 languages that this company supports. So there is no means whatsoever for a general model to know how that Korean translation should go. So what a platform that's providing accurate translations, especially for large companies, needs to do is domain adapt that platform. And there are a lot of ways to do that. We do that at Language.io in a variety of different ways. One of the ways is when we're onboarding a customer is if they have a glossary of like all of those gaming card names with their white labeled versions for 20 languages, we load that into our system and we detect new terms over time through smart model or through our self-improving glossary. But back to this initial scenario, when after we've selected the model that's going to provide the most fluent translation, we also look at that chat or email for these problematic terms. And we tell the selected engine in the moment we request the translation, how we want Eldrazi Devastator to be translated. That is just one example. There are also examples of more mundane terms that require a specific translation depending on the context. So and this is one I use a lot. Sheridan, I know you've heard this example before, but you're going to hear it again, is the word player. So player seems like a really straightforward word. How hard can it be to translate the word player? Well, it turns out it can be quite hard depending on what vertical you're talking about. Is it online gaming and gambling and you want it translated like a basketball player because you're placing a bet? Or are we talking about video streaming and it's a video streaming player? In English, it's the same. We use the word player. We might add context around it, obviously, but player is player. In most other languages, a video streaming player and a basketball player are completely different words. And if you just run a translation with that word through a model that has no context, it's going to translate it into the most common common translation for the word player. You're probably going to get basketball player, which is a problem if somebody's asking about a video streaming player. So again, let's say we're translating it into Spanish. In Spanish, if we're talking video streaming, it might be reproductor or tocador. There are a few options here, context dependent. If we're talking about a tennis player or basketball player, it's going to be jugador. And you really do need to know the context, or you're going to completely confuse the person on the other end of the conversation. So this is why you can't just plug into a general model. I don't care if it's ChatGPT or Google Translate or any of the other great translation solutions out there. They're not going to provide accurate translations without context.
I love that. And for those of you playing at home on your 2024 bingo card, you have just attended a webinar where we talk about Eldrazi Devastators. So mark it. So I love that about context. Are there any KPIs we should be thinking about as we're looking for fluency and accuracy inside of translations?
There absolutely are. It's just tough right now because different platforms use their own proprietary quality measurements. There's not really a gold standard yet for real-time translation. Like back in the days where everything was human translated, we used something called blue scores or edit distance, where you would have a machine translation and you would then involve a human linguist who would adjust that translation to make it human quality. And we would measure how many characters did that linguist have to alter to make it human quality. That would result in a number. The higher the number, the worse the quality. That's a great way to measure quality, but nobody has the time or money nowadays to run everything through edit distance metrics. We still do spot checking on that level, but so as far as KPIs for accuracy and quality, we look at a few things. So clearly, we're working in customer support ecosystems, and our translation solution can't degrade the experience of our customers, right? So their customer satisfaction scores shouldn't be lowered by the translation imposition in the process, right? However, customer satisfaction scores still aren't the be all end all because there's so much more that goes into the CSAT scores than just our translation piece. You could have a grouchy customer success agent. You could have an amazing customer success agent. So that also isn't a solid metric. We do look for correlations there, but it's not ultimately what we need. So what we offer at Language.io, and we're actually the only vendor out there to offer this, is we will agree contractually to maintain certain quality and latency levels within our system. Now, we have a number of ways to measure quality that are unique to our platform. And I'm not saying our quality measurements are the best. It's just that everybody does it differently. So I'm going to tell you about ours. So because we're in a customer support environment, we give the customer success agents the ability to tell us that they're not happy with the translation quality within the app and the CRM where they're working. We provide really easy to use apps for all major CRMs, and we give the support agent a number of little controls that allow them to give us supervised learning, human feedback that we then use to improve quality. But let me tell you more about the quality that they get to measure. So there are a couple things here. Let's go back to the Korean customer who sent a support chat in. It's translated into English for the support agent. The agent sees that English translation. If they don't like the translation that we provide, because we're not a single model solution, we're plugged into a dozen different models for real-time translation that adhere to our zero data retention policies. If they hit retranslate within the little UI that we provide them, our system will instantly provide them with a secondary translation from our priority 2 model for that company and for that language pair. So every time a support agent says, yeah, I don't like that, retranslate, that is a little metric that is stored in our quality database, right? So what we say is over time, you want to keep your retranslation rates below a certain percentage. And we will provide service level agreements within our contracts that say, if your retranslation rates exceed a certain threshold, a certain percentage of all of your translations, we will give you a refund for that percentage. So that's one of the ways, one of the KPIs that we allow our customers to measure. And we have others like that as well.
Yeah, my favorite story. So I took French, so I have no idea what you just said in Spanish, but typically Parisian French and Quebec French, they always, like I was in Paris one time and they subtitled the Canadian speakers. So it's just very interesting because you can have dialects in that too, and you want to make sure you're thinking about that. So the multiple translation models is an excellent thing. But security, like that is, I think, the big blocker for people thinking about large AI solutions is, what risk are they putting their business at? And what risk are they putting their customers at? And I'm going to brag on you for a minute. Heather was recently in Fortune magazine talking about ethics and AI, and security is certainly a branch of that. I'd love to know, like, when you think about how we can protect ourselves but get all the benefits of platforms like Language.io, what should we be thinking about?
Yeah, that's a great question, Sheridan. And as you know, at Language.io, this has been something that we have baked into we've been around for over a decade now. And I can remember before the GDPR, before folks were worried about security in AI, we started to get security questionnaires from our larger enterprise customers who were saying, what are you doing with our data? Like, this is sensitive customer content. These chats, these emails, customers put all sorts of information in there that they shouldn't be. They will put their credit card numbers in a support chat. They will include their date of birth in that same exact chat and their full name. Every piece of information that you might need to perform identity theft. And I don't say this lightly, it's a concern. So again, even before GDPR, our bigger customers were saying, we need to know that these support chats and these emails are being handled securely and that you're not holding on to that content. And so even though back in the day, the process to domain adapt or customize a real-time translation solution for a particular company was to hold on to every scrap of customer data that you could and use it to train the model. Even back then, we made the executive decision, we are not holding on to customer data. That would make us one more potential point of breach. We do not want to be that potential point of breach. We want to make this an easy check the box for the security team. And there was no word for it back then. We would just say, yeah, we're not holding on to your customers' data. And they would say, how are you improving translation quality? And we'd walk them through all of the ways that we can improve quality without holding on to that data. And we adhere to that today in the era of generative AI and large language models, when they still want every scrap of data that they can keep to improve quality over time. So there is a word for it now. It's called zero data retention, and some folks call it zero trace. But what that means, and this was a big issue at yesterday's gambling and gaming conference where I was presenting here in London, and not many vendors will commit to this because most vendors, whether it's just a generic generative AI platform, one of the commercial models out there, or a neural machine translation model and vendor, they want all the data to improve translation quality. We do it 3 different ways. And when you're going to be working with a vendor that provides some kind of AI powered service, whether it's generative AI or just traditional neural machine translation, what you should be thinking about, or even if you're building it in-house yourselves, what you need to be thinking about is, am I sharing my customers' sensitive data with a platform that is going to hold on to it and potentially expose my customers to a personal data breach, whether that's one customer or many customers. And the word you're looking for is zero data retention. You want to work with vendors who will commit to being a zero data retention provider, whether it's the straight up large language model platform that you're integrating with directly, a vendor like Language.io that provides a layer on top of that. There's all sorts of ways that you might be ultimately feeding your customers' data into an AI platform that is very hungry for data. So ensure that these vendors will commit to being zero data retention.
I wish we had time for your full security presentation, but if you're on this call and you want to hear that, we'll let you know, but it's really an amazing presentation about other things that you need to be thinking about. Like, for instance, the hallucinations. Like, Heather is amazing on that. So stay tuned. Well, one of the other things you talk a lot about is the real-time data. And can you talk about some of the channels where a platform like ours would be really useful?
Absolutely. So the most obvious channel, so I'll just start there, but we definitely go beyond this, is customer support and customer experience. So there was a Gartner poll recently of 2,500 executives where Gartner reported that customer experience is where companies today are spending the lion's share of their AI budget. So it makes sense to start in the world of customer experience. And when it comes to customer experience, customer success, customer support, obviously we're talking about chats. Now it's not just chats, it's also email, but nowadays it all needs to be real time. We don't have time for anything other than real-time translation. And bots, which is probably an old-fashioned term. I should probably say something. I should say agents, potentially. But yeah, so let's start with customer support. So a standard channel where our customers use our technology for that real-time translation piece. The biggest channel is real-time chat, live chat with a human agent and a human customer. We plug right into all of the major CRMs with a very transparent, easy to use app. So often the support agents don't even know it's a third party that's in there translating between them and the customers. That's the biggest use case for our technology, real-time chat. But we are slowly moving toward a conversation between AI and humans, right? Where the AI is engaging with the human. And often, whether we're just talking about an AI powered bot or a rules-based bot, it's all, machine human engagement. And it's a lot of work to create a bot or an agent that is domain adapted and can answer your customers' questions. It's a lot of work to do that in a single language and to maintain that and to keep it updated. What we're finding with our customers is once they've gotten that up and running in a single language, they don't want to have to replicate all of that work for every language that their company currently supports or is going to support in the future. So where we also plug in, and this is a really big use case, is to provide that translation layer, domain adapted, knows how to translate your product and industry jargon between the AI and the human. That's another very legitimate real-time translation scenario. Of course, there's emails, and we provide an API as well. So it's an enterprise level API, highly secure, will hit your customized instance on our end. So what you get out of that API call will be specific to your company. And a lot of our customers who have a homegrown customer support solution or CRM solution will just hit our real-time translation layer through our API endpoint. It still gives them access to that smart model selection, the failover solution, everything that we've been talking about today.
That's amazing. For our listeners who are on other platforms, which are we kind of out of the box CRMs are we integrated with? And what does an integration or an onboarding look like with those platforms?
Sure. So I'll just throw out some of the larger integrations where, we have a lot of customer engagement. Salesforce, an obvious one. So all of the real-time Salesforce support channels, we have an app. We also have an app for knowledge-based translation where we can pull in human linguists. More on that later because that is critical to our AI and agent assistant roadmap. Of course, we also support platforms like Zendesk, ServiceNow, Oracle Service Cloud, and a few others as well.
That's amazing. One of the things that I hear from our customers, especially our new ones, is how easy the integration was compared to other platforms. And as a person who buys a lot of software, that is music to my ears. We did get a question in the chat, though, just to kind of, if you could give us your thoughts on voice and how you might leverage a solution like this. I know we've been working with a couple of companies. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So voice is something that we are hearing a lot of interest in, and we do have a voice solution for the platforms that I mentioned as well. We just haven't seen a lot of volumes yet. I feel like a lot of the enterprise companies that we're working with are just moving slowly into the voice space, but you can't escape it. Voice is coming, and whether it's in a support scenario or some other enterprise B2B scenario, voice is here. And the same technology that we employ to provide fluent and accurate translations of text-based communication is also leveraged for the voice-based communication. So just to geek out for a second here, voice-to-voice translation, while it is going to happen, is still nascent. It's not really enterprise ready yet. So what most platforms are doing is taking the voice, converting it to text, and then processing the text, converting the text back to voice. So that's why it's just so easy to use our existing technology, because we've got a solution that does that voice to text, text to voice conversion, and then just everything kicks in. There is an added complexity. I won't pretend like it's exactly the same, because noise can be introduced in that voice to text conversion. There could be background noise. There are accents at play that make that that conversion a little more difficult. So we work with those to weed out the noise, to normalize accents that are difficult to convert. There is more complexity there.
Like my Southern accent. It would be really
like
hard.
Your Southern accent.
My Southern accent, yes, that'd be difficult to translate. Well, as we kind of 2024 comes to a close and we're thinking about the horizon, when you think about our 2025 predictions, one of the things that I'm going to get you to riff on that in a second, but one of the things that I've seen just transition in AI over the past year is the move to agents, co-pilots, et cetera. And when we are saying agents here, we're talking about the AI doing action versus our customer support agents. Can you talk a little bit about what we're doing in that space and what you're seeing broadly?
Absolutely. This is really exciting to me because this is a wave of technology that we're all going to be benefiting from. So what we're doing at Language IO, of course, we've been providing the real-time human-to-human translation for a long time. We've also, intercepted bot output for a while now and translated into the customer's language, and then the customer back into the bot language. But we're actually taking over more of that process with the release of what we've been calling the Copilot. The name might change, but this is what we're talking about. So within the CRMs that we support today, like I mentioned before, we provide also a very slick solution for knowledge base managers to request human or high quality translation of their knowledge base content. So your self-help is available in all of the languages that your company supports. And there are so many reasons to do this across all of the languages. I don't have time to dive into that right now. But because we already have a channel for real-time translation of all of this support content, we are uniquely positioned to provide a conversational assistant, an agent assistant within our real-time chat channels that we provide for all of these CRMs. So the way it's going to work, and we've already rolled it out to early access folks who are testing it today, is within our chat apps, within these CRMs, not only are we going to translate the incoming customer's chat into the language of the support agent, we're also going to be using a large language model. Again, it's all zero data retention on our end when it comes to the user-generated content, that is looking for a suggested response within the knowledge base content that we've already human translated. So, and this is where it gets interesting. Let's say you've got this Korean speaking customer who said they want to cancel their subscription for whatever service. So we're going to obviously translate the Korean into English. The support agent knows that that's what the Korean customer is asking about. But simultaneously, within a matter of milliseconds, because we've now vectorized all of this high quality translated knowledge base information and have that stored in a vector DB on our side, we will also, in the Korean knowledge base, find the answer to that question. And it's important that I'm calling out that we're finding the answer in the Korean knowledge base content. And the reason that's important, especially when it comes to policies, like how many days do I have to cancel my subscription before I'm charged, that can absolutely vary by geo. It can vary by country to country. So maybe in South Korea, you have 30 days to cancel your subscription. But in the States, you only have 20 days to cancel your subscription. So it's key that we're finding the answer in the Korean vectorized knowledge base content, right? Not in the English knowledge base content. Furthermore, this is helping the support agent because, as we've already discussed, the support agent doesn't speak Korean. So if they were to go and find the answer in the English knowledge base content, A, it's going to take forever. Like, this is not an efficient use of their time. And B, they don't speak Korean. They can't find the accurate answer in the Korean knowledge base. They're going to go find the inaccurate answer in the US English knowledge base content. They're going to tell them they have 20 days when in fact they have 30. So we're finding the answer in the Korean knowledge. We're translating that response into English so the support agent knows what we're suggesting. And it just pops up right there in the chat window where they're working. They can validate, yeah, that looks like a good response. Hit send. Instead of taking 5 minutes, 10 minutes to find the answer, it takes a couple of seconds. They understand what we're suggesting because we translated it into English for the agent. But this is where it's super cool. What we're sending to the Korean customer is not a translation. We found the answer in the Korean knowledge base content. English agent understands it, but what goes out to the Korean customer is native Korean. It's not a translation. So of course the quality is even higher because our professional Korean linguists translated it into Korean. So we know it's a really high quality response and it's accurate for that geo.
I love it. Well, what do you think we should expect from AI in 2025?
You know, it kind of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning of our conversation. Enterprise companies expect value. They want to see a return on their investment. Gone are the days when they're just going to be, writing checks without understanding what the return on their investment is. They want to know, if I plug in this agent assistant language IO that you're talking about, what's it going to do for me? And we need to be able to respond with an answer such as, it's going to increase agent efficiency by 15% or something to that effect, right? You can't just say, yeah, it's going to make your agents more efficient. They want numbers. They want to know, if I'm writing a big check for this technology, like, again, what's my ROI? And it's pretty straightforward. We need to be able to give our customers answers. It can't just be, oh, it's AI, everything's better now.
Yeah, AI will save us. I do think I love what you were talking about with a co-pilot, because I think agents will only, and I mean, the AI agent is only going to get more sophisticated and take even more complex actions on our behalf. Do you see that?
Oh yeah, and it's funny that you bring that up because again, at this conference I was at yesterday, there was a panel where these folks were asked, what do you predict is going to happen next year with AI? And one of the guys on the panel said, and this made me kind of sad, I have to admit, he's like, this could be the last year where you do your Christmas shopping in person. And I was like, really? Like, what do you mean? Because I like Christmas shopping. It's festive, it's fun. But to your point, Sheridan, agents are going to be able to do a lot of things for us. And these task specific agents are going to be unleashed on the marketplace. And what this guy was getting at is your agent, you might have a personal agent shopping for you online, who knows what your Christmas list is for all of your loved ones and is just going to go out there and buy things for you. And I think that's true across the board, obviously, not just for Christmas shopping, but for a lot of the specific tasks that some of us find unnecessarily time consuming and tedious.
So I think if I get an AI Christmas shopping bot, it would be way more effective than my own personal shopping and probably actually stay in the budget. So
I
I am
know.
looking forward to that day. Well, I have a question actually already from our audience. One of the things that they talked about was that they're not always sure that their customer support team has the best grammar or the best writing ability, and they really want to adopt more chat. How do we make sure that we get good translations from bad inputs?
No, that's an excellent question. And I love that question, because this is another very measurable KPI that we're able to provide with our customers, because we have for a year now employed safe, secure large language models to optimize the agent's response. Let's say the agent is responding in English, optimize the English response
I think Heather's breaking up a little bit. Hold
before
on.
we translate it. Like, is it any better now, Sheridan?
Much better, thank you.
Oops. Okay. I just got an your internet is unstable message. We're still good?
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to keep talking. So the optimization piece that I was mentioning before uses large language model to optimize the agent's messy response. And what we see from some of our customers with their support agents is the agents might be asked to respond in English. So there's a uniform language for the entire support team, but it might not be their native language. So they might be responding with some incorrect grammar, not perfect English. That's one thing. Often agents are also too verbose, use acronyms, they insert misspellings that make their response difficult to translate. So this optimization process has improved translation quality for a number of our larger customers, and it's resulted in much lower retranslation rates per the SLA that I was talking about at the beginning.
That's amazing. And did I make this up, but we had somebody do an experiment on their lower performing agents, and some of this stuff actually helped those agents that may have been struggling to perform better.
Yeah, specifically the agent assistant does that. It kind of spreads the knowledge around so that if you're new, we're going to suggest responses that you need. You don't have to spend 5 minutes looking up. Whereas the more senior agents, they just appreciate that they don't have to type, but it kind of
Well,
spreads the knowledge around.
that's amazing. Well, welcome back, Chloe.
Thank
And I
you.
bet you're going to tell people if they want to type or have questions to please use the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have a few minutes left for audience questions. So go ahead and pop your questions in the chat or in the Q&A box, and we'll get through as many as we can. We do have a couple here already, so if it's okay with you two, I'm going to go into those.
Go for it.
Perfect.
Awesome. So this question is from Murat, and Murat says, what does zero data retention actually mean? Will I see a case translated in my CRM, or will I have to retranslate that?
That's a great question. So what zero data retention means at Language IO is we are not your CRM. We plug into your CRM, right? But when we've got this Korean customer chatting in Korean and it needs to be translated into English for the agent, it first passes through the CRM, hits our app, and then we send the translation call to our server. So from the Language IO perspective, we're going to translate that Korean chat into English. Once we've translated it into English and pushed the English translation back into the CRM, it is wiped from the Language IO system, and not just our system, from any sub-processor, any other third-party platform that we used in the translation process. So we've pushed the English translation back into, say, Salesforce, and it now does not exist in our system. It is wiped. Neither the original Korean chat nor the translated English chat exists in our system. Obviously, you still need to have that history. That history will remain in your CRM. So in the chat transcript or the email thread history within the CRM itself, you will still see both the English and the Korean, because it's the job of the CRM to persist that information for you. All of it is reportable there, doesn't disappear there. But in our system, we are zero data retention because we're not holding on to it. And that's what's going to be important to you, because you don't want every vendor that touches that chat to have a copy of it.
Thank you very much, Heather. And we've got another one here. Remember, guys, the Q&A box is still open as well. This one's from Bella, so thank you, Bella. What types of customers are going to be most successful on your platform?
Sorry, Chloe, you cut out. I just heard which customers are going to be most successful on your platform.
That's exactly right, yeah.
Oh, so what type of customer? There are a variety of different types of customers that are going to be most successful, but I'll tell you that what we're really looking for right now is
I think she's frozen for me. Is she for you, Chloe?
She has frozen for me, yes. And she's back. Hey, Heather.
I would blame London, but I think London probably has pretty good internet connectivity. So let me try that again. Okay, I'll blame London. We're looking for a company that knows what success means to them. Like, what are they looking to achieve with our technology? Are they looking to consolidate into one language agnostic support team? And what are the success criteria? Like, how long do you want that consolidation process to take? We're looking to work with companies that understand what success means to them, that dedicate the resources that they need to dedicate to helping us make you successful. We don't want to, like, it's even in a really large organization, sometimes it's difficult when they just think, well, plug Language IO in and hope for the best. Like, we need a concerted effort on the part of the companies that we're working with to focus on this, understand what success means to them, and help us help you. Sheridan, you probably want to add to that.
No, I think you crushed it. Despite being in a hotel room and having just done a big presentation and having shady Wi-Fi.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, thank you both so much. So with that, I would like to say a huge thank you again to Sheridan and Heather for joining us. I could listen to you guys chat all day. It was super interesting, and to hear what you guys are working on in 2025 as well. If you did have a question that you didn't get a chance to ask today, or if something comes to mind later, please do feel free to get in touch with CX Network. You will also find on the Zoom profiles for Sheridan and Tether are their LinkedIn profiles as well. I would like to again draw your attention to our resources box, where there is some free content in there, including case studies and security checklists. It's really worth having a look at. And there should be a link flashing up on your screen right about now, in case you did want to book a demo with Language.io. You can do that as well. But that's going to be all from us today. Please keep an eye out for the on-demand link, and please don't hesitate to get in touch if you do have any questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye, guys.